Unchecked pride leads to chronic resentment. Your spouse stops trusting you with their heart. In my counseling experience, many affairs and separations trace back to one thing. One spouse who spends years feeling like they couldn't be heard, valued, or respected. They didn't leave for someone better looking or wealthier. They left because someone else made them feel seen. Hey, don't miss out on our 10 most popular resource bundle. It is live for this month only. We only bundle this many resources once a year. This is the first time we've ever offered 10 resources. So don't miss out on this opportunity to strengthen your marriage in so many ways with these edifying tools. So what's in the bundle this year? Well, house prayer cards, 30-day communication challenge, love making survey 2.0, 9 days to building the habit of prayer, date night boosters, 21-day wife appreciation challenge, 21-day husband encouragement challenge, simple guide to marriage boundaries, tease me to please me bedroom game, and 28 fill-in-the-blank thank you notes. Check out our 10 most popular resource bundle in the link in our show notes today. So is there a place for pride in a marriage? Well, welcome back to the Awesome Marriage Podcast. I'm Dr. Ken. I'm glad you are here today. Whether you're a longtime listener or maybe you're joining us for the very first time, I want you to know that this is a place where we talk about the real stuff, the messy, the complicated, the beautiful stuff that happens inside of a marriage. Today's topic is one I think hits close to home for just about every couple that I've ever worked with in my counseling office. And honestly, if I'm really being transparent, which I always want to do, it's one Nancy and I have had to navigate in our own marriage too. And we're talking about pride. You've probably heard the old proverb that pride comes before the fall. We all kind of nod at that and we say, yeah, that's true. But when it comes to our marriages, most of us don't walk around thinking, I've got a pride problem. We think our spouse does. So today, I want us to slow down and take an honest look at pride in marriage, where it comes from, what it's really doing to our relationships, and how we can start getting a hand on it. For those of you who are living with a spouse who struggles with pride, we're going to talk about that too. How do you love well and hold healthy boundaries when pride is taking up a lot of space in your marriage relationship? And guys, there's always hope. So let's just jump into it now. When we talk about pride in marriage, what are we really talking about? When I bring up pride in a counseling session, I almost never lead with the word arrogant. That word puts people off, puts people defensive. Instead, I ask by asking different questions. Like, do you find yourself constantly needing to be right? Do you feel defensive when your spouse raises a concern? Do you struggle to apologize? And when you do apologize, does it come with a but? At its core, pride in marriage often looks like self-protection. It's this wall we build around ourselves to avoid feeling weak, inadequate, or out of control. When our spouse says something critical, pride tells us to counterattack instead of listen. And when we make a mistake, pride tells us to minimize it or justify it rather than own it. When conflict arises, pride tells us winning the argument matters more than understanding our spouse. In Proverbs 13:10, it says, where there is strife, there is pride. So I want you to hear that. Where there is strife, where there is consistent conflict and friction in your marriage, pride is usually somewhere in the mix. So is there a healthy pride in marriage? And what's the difference between confidence and pride? Those are great questions. And I want to be careful here because I don't want anyone to walk away thinking all confidence is bad or that having a healthy sense of self is sinful, because it's not. There's a beautiful thing that happens when you're proud of your spouse, when you brag about them, when you celebrate their wins and you feel genuinely glad about who they are. That's not the kind of pride we're dealing with today. And there's a healthy confidence that allows you to bring your gifts and your voice into a marriage without constantly shrinking back. That's healthy. But here's the distinction I want you to hold on to. Healthy confidence says I have value, and so does my spouse. Pride says I have value, and my spouse needs to acknowledge it. Confidence is secure, pride is insecure, and it demands to be fed. Confidence can receive correction, pride can't. The Greek word in the New Testament, often translated as pride, hyperphenia, literally means to think more highly of yourself than you do of others. That's the one that we're watching for. So how does pride erode intimacy and connection over time in a marriage? Well, here's the thing I think about pride. It doesn't usually blow up a marriage in one dramatic moment. It erodes it slowly, like how water wears down stone. Intimacy requires vulnerability, and pride and vulnerability are mortal enemies. When pride is present, one or both spouses stop being honest about their needs, their fears, and their failures. Conversations stay surface level because going deeper, it just feels too risky. So you stop reaching for each other because the last time you did, you felt judged or dismissed. Now, I sit with couples who have been married for 20, 30 years and are essentially strangers. Not because they stopped caring, but because pride built a wall one brick at a time. Every unapologized offense was a brick. Every conversation where one spouse lectured instead of listened was a brick. Every eye roll, every dismissal, here we go again, brick by brick by brick. The practical result? Well, emotional distance, less physical affection, one or both spouses feeling like they can't bring up concerns because it will just become a fight. And gradually, the marriage becomes more like a business arrangement than a covenant relationship. So what are the short-term effects of pride? Well, what happens when it goes unchecked for the long term? In the short term, pride usually wins its battles. You win the argument. You don't have to admit you were wrong. Your feelings get protected. But here's the painful truth. You lose the war. Every short-term win costs you relational currency with your spouse. Short-term, arguments that go unresolved, an atmosphere of tension in the home, a spouse who starts going quiet, not because they're at peace, because they've learned it isn't that speaking up just isn't worth it. Long term, well, this is where it really gets serious. Unchecked pride leads to chronic resentment. Your spouse stops trusting you with their heart. In my counseling experience, many affairs and separations trace back to one thing. One spouse who spends years feeling like they couldn't be heard, valued, or respected. They didn't leave for someone better looking, or wealthier. They left because someone else made them feel seen. Pride left unchecked will cost you, guys, it'll cost you your marriage. So what does pride reveal about us individually? Well, this is where we move from diagnosis to heart work, because pride, it doesn't show up out of nowhere. It reveals something about what's going on inside of us. In my years of counseling, I found that pride in marriage is almost always covering one of three things: fear, insecurity, or pain. The spouse who constantly needs to be right is often terrified of being seen as inadequate. The spouse who can't receive feedback often grew up in a home where they were harshly criticized. So now feedback feels like an attack. And the spouse who dominates every conflict may have a deep fear of losing control. James 4:6 tells us God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. That's not a threat. That's an invitation. God knows that pride cuts us off from the grace we desperately need. And when we operate from pride, we're essentially saying, I got this. I don't need help. And that posture, it isolates us from God and from our spouse. So how can someone be self-reflective and identify pride in their own heart? Well, in Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24, it's one of my favorite passages for this. Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me and lead me in the way everlasting. Make that your daily prayer. Ask God to show you what's in there. But let me give you three really practical diagnostic questions. And I want you to be really honest with yourself as I ask them. You ready? Okay. First, how do you respond when you're wrong? Do you own it quickly and cleanly? Or do you deflect and minimize and get defensive or reframe the situation so you come out looking better? When I'm working with a couple, I can tell a lot about the health of their marriage just by watching how each person handles being wrong. A humble person says, "You're right, I was wrong, I'm sorry." A proud person says, "Well, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done this." Second, how do you receive feedback from your spouse? This is so huge, guys. Does your spouse feel safe bringing you concerns? Or have they learned over time that bringing something up leads to a fight, defensiveness, or days of the silent treatment? If your spouse has stopped bringing things to you, that's not a sign that everything is fine. It's a sign that pride has made the environment unsafe for honesty. Third, how do you engage in conflict? Do you fight to win or do you fight to understand? Pride fights to win. Humility fights to understand. In healthy conflict, both people leave feeling heard, even if the issue isn't completely resolved. In pride-driven conflict, someone has to lose, and it's usually the relationship that loses. So then, how do couples move forward when pride has become a cycle? Well, this is where the real work happens, guys. And I want to be honest with you. Breaking a pride cycle in a marriage, it's not a weekend project. It's a sustained, intentional commitment by both spouses. The first step is acknowledgement, of course. Someone has to go first. And if you're the one listening to this now, right now, maybe that's you. James 5:16 says to confess your faults to one another. Not your spouse's faults, your faults. That may sound like I've realized that I've been really defensive and I haven't made it safe for you to be honest with me. I'm sorry. I don't want to change that. The second step is creating some new patterns. So if your old pattern is that a concern from your spouse leads to a 10-minute argument with no resolution, guys, you need a new pattern. Agree together on a conflict protocol. How you're going to handle disagreements. So for you, maybe that means taking a 20-minute break before you re-engaging if things get heated. Maybe it means asking, can I reflect back what I heard you say before I respond? Third, get help. Seriously, I say this all the time. There's no shame in going to a counselor. Pride-driven couples often resist counseling because it means admitting there's a problem. But let me tell you, the couples who have the courage to sit down with a counselor and do the hard work are the ones who build something really beautiful. And finally, and this is the most important one, invite God into the process. Ephesians 4:2 calls us to be completely humble and gentle, patient, bearing with one another in love, and that's not natural. That's supernatural. You can't manufacture that kind of love on your own. You need the Holy Spirit to produce it in you. So how should someone handle a spouse who is struggling with pride? Well, okay, I want to speak directly now to those of you who are on the receiving end of a spouse's pride. The one who feels constantly dismissed or corrected, or like your voice doesn't matter in your own marriage. I say you guys, and I want you to know your frustration that you feel is valid. First, don't fight fire with fire. When your spouse gets defensive or starts lecturing, matching their energy escalates things really quickly, doesn't it? Instead, lower your voice, slow down. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in the middle of a tense moment is say, I don't want to fight with you. I love you. Can we slow down? Second, be specific and use vulnerability instead of accusation. So instead of saying you're always so defensive, try, I feel I can't bring things up without it becoming a big deal. And that makes me feel really lonely. You're not accusing, you're opening a door. Third, pray for your spouse. I know that sounds like something you'd put on a bumper sticker or a coffee mug, but I do really mean it practically. There's something that changes in us when we consistently bring our spouse before God. It softens our own hearts, and over time, it often softens theirs. So what are healthy boundaries for a spouse dealing with a prideful partner? Well, boundaries are not walls. They're not punishments. A healthy boundary, well, it's going to say, Here's what I'm able to participate in, and here's what I'm not. You're allowed to say, I'm not going to have this conversation if we're yelling at each other. I'll come back to it when we can talk calmly. That's not giving up. That's choosing a healthier environment for the conversation. You are allowed to say, I need you to stop talking to me that way. I deserve to be spoken to with respect. And so do you. You're allowed to say, I love you, and I'm not willing to keep doing this the same way. I'd like us to see a counselor together. What you don't want to do is simply endure an unhealthy dynamic indefinitely without ever naming it. That's not humility, guys. That is enabling. Ephesians 4:15 calls us to speak the truth in love. The truth is that the current dynamic is not working. Love says we're going to do something about it together. And if your spouse refuses any help, refuses any conversation, and the situation is affecting your emotional or your spiritual well-being significantly, talk to your counselor. Go to a counselor, talk to them on your own. You deserve support even if your spouse isn't ready to seek it with you. What's the hope for couples struggling with pride? Well, I want to close with this because I never want you to leave an episode feeling like your situation is hopeless, because it's not. I've seen God do remarkable things in marriages that pride had nearly destroyed. I've sat across from couples who had been in a Cold War for years, barely speaking, sleeping in separate rooms, each one convinced the other was the problem. And I've watched them experience genuine restoration, not because they figured out the perfect communication technique, but because one of them, and sometimes it's both of them, got on their knees and surrendered their pride to God. Philippians 2:3-4 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of the others. That is the antidote to pride, not self-hatred, not being a doormat, but genuinely valuing your spouse, their needs, their feelings, their perspective above your own need to be right. So here's what I know. The same God who created marriage is the God who redeems it. He's not given up on your marriage, and I'd encourage you not to do that either. So, your challenge this week, well, I want to give you a challenge today before you go. This week, I want you to sit quietly and honestly ask yourself those 3 diagnostic questions. How do I respond when I'm wrong? How do I receive feedback? How do I engage in conflict? And then I want you to have one honest conversation with your spouse, not an accusation, not a lecture, just an honest, vulnerable statement. I've been thinking about some of the ways I may have let pride show up in our marriage, and I want to do better. Can we talk about that? That one conversation could be the beginning of something really significant in your marriage relationship. All right, that's our episode. Next week, Greg Smalley will join me. We're going to be talking about 9 lies that will destroy your marriage and the truths that will save it and set it free. Hey, and if our podcast has resonated with you today, would you do me a favor and share it? Share it with a couple that you know, or share it to your small group. Text it to a friend. You never know who needs to hear this. Hey, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the Awesome Marriage Podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. And it'd be great if you'd leave us a review, because it really does help more people find us. Nancy and I are cheering you guys on. We believe in your marriage. Now go and build an awesome one.